So, morning folks, welcome to the channel. A little bit later than usual today, got a bit of a lie in, had a nice sleep. Went to Dublin yesterday to see my uncle, who's been very sick for a long time, and so it was really nice to get to see family for an afternoon. And I've not really been able to do any of that stuff for a long time. So today I want to talk to you a bit more about the Xlayer, right? I think you can see, if you're watching on social media, there's a bit of a drive to bring the Xlayer back, right? And understandably, like I never stopped fishing them, but I've seen them sitting on the shop shelves and nobody going near them, and kind of, oh, they're a thing of the past or whatever. And they totally aren't. Like, I mean, it's a complete mistake. So a lot of the stuff I've talked to you about so far has been about like trotting baits in estuaries, bouncing them along the bottom. But the Xlayer is a far more versatile bait than that. Like, it can do a hell of a lot more than just bump it along the bottom of an estuary. You can fish an Xlayer really well on the open coast. If you're a boat fisherman or a kayak fisherman, you should be really interested in the Xlayer as a bait. I mean, for vertical fishing, it's probably my go-to number one. Like, there are some really talented kayak fishermen around Waterford. Bradley Ridsdale, who's going to be part of the team, his fishing buddy Tony Phelan, another great kayak fisherman. These guys know their stuff, right? And they know how to put those yaks over some really good fish. I've seen those guys tussling with taupe out of the yak. Like, they're not short of kahunas, let's just say that. So it's great to have Brad on board with Copper Coast Lures, because he's a wealth of knowledge about kayak fishing. I mean, it's a form of fishing I don't do. I do quite a bit of boat fishing, but the kayak, for me, a little bit too close to the water. I just, no thank you, right? I'll leave that to the younger guys, right? But I just wanted to talk to you about some of the potential to use the Xlayer in situations that fellas maybe don't think, oh, I wouldn't fish an Xlayer there, right? Like, what I notice lately is that there's an awful lot of paddle tail fishing going on. It's paddle tail this, paddle tail that, paddle tail the other. And okay, fine, paddle tails catch bass, but I've also seen so many bass just turn away from them. They'll follow right up to the boat and then just turn away, right? Because they don't always want a big super tunk, 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 tunk. Sometimes they do, right? But other times they don't. They want a way more subtle approach, and the Xlayer is that, right? Now, it's synonymous, of course, with and I've been responsible in part for that, right? With the batchy head, right? From Decoy. So that's the 5 gram, and to have that in your arsenal, if you're fishing a 4 to 24 gram or 22 gram rod in an estuary or on a beach, whatever, that's really, really useful. Like, you can I mean, you see Mark Cowling doing particularly well on the sleeper crawl, right? Well, I've been fishing the Xlayers the very same way for years, right? So it works like a net head. You could fish it on a net head. In fact, I'm getting a bunch of net heads in, but we'll talk about that when they arrive, and the bait that I have to hook up with them, right? Because it's lethal, but that's for the future. We'll stick to the topic, Pat. Pat, stick to the topic. I always digress. I always fly all over the place because like, and even worse is I have Henry Gilby messaging me now, giving me his crazy fishing thoughts. Like, so it's like double fishing thinking, I want to give a shout out to Mick Ward, good friend of Mick's, passed away, and just thinking of you, Mick. He was a great guy. So big shout out to you, man. Thinking of you here in Ireland. Um, uh, those were great times. We had some really great times together. You know, great times fishing on that sandbar. Um, but back to the Xlayer. So what can the Xlayer do? Well, it's a bait you can fish on the open coast, right? Like a lot of the marks, coastal marks I fish. Like I was in Pembrokeshire recently, and it's very similar to the Irish coastline. And you think about it, it's only what is it, 40 or 50 miles across the Irish Sea? I don't know. It's not that far anyway, 100 miles maybe. And like it's a very similar coastline. So, and I've seen Out for a Cast. He's great on Instagram, right? Um, fishing similar ground, right? Where you're going into little nooks and crannies and you're waiting for the tide to either drop out or flood in, and the bass come in, and they're quite close to you, right? They're not off way out there, right? They're in tight because all the bait stays in tight to stay away from them, right? And so they push in as hard as they can. Like I've been here in the mouth of the Shore estuary, and I've seen bass tails out of the water with fish rummaging down into, and I know what they're trying to get to because I used to pull them, the velvet swimmer crab, right? And they hide in, they lodge themselves in the crevices, and the bass try and get in and root them out, right? So we use the Xlayer in those situations to great effect. Like there was a day where we put up, I can't remember what surface lure it was, but we took the hooks off it and we teased the fish in with surface lure, and then we just flick an Xlayer on a coyote head in amongst them, and sure enough, bang, straight away, fish on. Now they weren't big fish, they were 50s, but they were amazing sport. Like it was amazing to see them coming in and following and swiping at the surface lure all the time, and then just flicking the Xlayer, giving it a couple of pulls, right? So when you rig the X on a coyote head like that, it will give it a darting motion on the retrieve, right? And if you just tip the rod like so, even more so. So you let it drop and you fishing it back up, right? Now, look, if you're not willing to lose lures, take up golf because you bass fishing, you're gonna lose lures. It's just a part of the deal. Because to get in the zone, to get where the bass are, you've got to get down to the bottom and fish up through the columns until you find them. Now, some days you'll have them up on the top, but other days, no, they're right down holding, and they may not even be feeding, right? So that setup there is just incredibly useful for the coast. Now, there's its big brother, and again, a heavier head, right? So that's the 15-gram coyote head. I fish that on the coast all the time. Like, especially if you have, like a little inlet or a little cove and it's got a couple of gutters. I'm usually on the right or the left hand side of it, and the tide will be moving from right to left, and I'm just flicking it out and dink 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 back, right? Just getting it to zigzag through the water back. And I mean, if you look at it, I'll shoot some GoPro footage of it on these heads. It's got an incredible side to side action. It fishes like almost like a jerk bait. Zing 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 zing. So really handy. And then if you've got to pull the really big guns out, right? So you notice this time I have it rigged the other way around, right? So this is when I want to get it to fall as fast as I can, right? If it's falling that way, it'll have more resistance. Okay, so now honestly, I don't think that makes a huge amount of difference. Okay, if I'm vertical fishing from the boat, I do tend to rig them on the flat side, right? Because I want to get them down to the bottom as fast as I can and fish them hard on the bottom. And literally all I'm doing is I'm dropping it right over the edge of the boat, letting it hit the bottom, tighten into it, and just lift, lift. A bit like jigging, right? Same idea. And I'm watching down on the Helix Pro all the time. We're over the fish, and sure enough, as soon as you come over the fish, ding, ding, up you go, right? So that's on a 20-gram rolling head. Now, the other place that I'll utilize that quite a bit is in the surf, right? On a sandy beach, these are fantastic. You just cast them out and let them wash around. All you got to do is stay in touch with them, right? Now, if weed is an issue, I don't have one to hand. Do I have one anywhere there? That's a surprise. I don't have one to hand, but you've got the ultimate Texas eel head. I thought I had one. Oh, I do. Right, I've just got a different bait on it, but actually, nice. So, same style of bait. Okay, it's the Mad Slug 150. So if weed is an issue, you hook them onto those. Now, I know Andy Davies. I know a lot of you'll know Andy. He's does phenomenal work with bass, the Bass Angler Sporting Society. I joined, out myself. I only joined this year. I was remiss in not joining that organization because they do phenomenal work, and the people from Plymouth University were incredible to listen to. The information that they gave out. Sorry, I was just grabbing my go juice. The strongest thing I take these days, coffee. But they've just had fantastic information on the spawning, where fish spawned, what time of year they spawned, the migration patterns, etc., etc. So just really, really interesting. So not all the European bass are the same. Like, for example, the dark colored fish and the light colored fish, that's nothing to do with where they live. They're actually two separate strains of bass. Okay? Same species, just a different strain. Right? So it's a bit like you have different types of finches. You also have different types of bass. And the light and the dark are just genetically slightly different. We always thought it was like, oh, they get those big black fish because they live in the kelp or whatever that change color. No, that's not the case, right? And we wouldn't know these things if it weren't for the scientists, and we wouldn't know about the spawning times and the spawning patterns and how important it is that we protect our nursery areas, right? So the fish will spawn at sea, and then the immature bass make their way back in, and they go into the upper estuaries and the lagoons, and they feed on crustaceans and stuff and grow very, very, very slowly. And they do predate on each other, like a big bass will eat a small bass. So a bit like pike, right? All predators are fairly savage. But to get back to the point in hand, right? So if you have a lot of weed, there's your solution, right? And I guess it's the Texas eel head from Xlayer. Now, look, they are a little bit pricey. There's nothing I can do about that. Xlayer, all their stuff, all the stuff I buy into that company is a bit pricey. And believe me, I'm not being greedy. I'm not getting a huge slice, honestly. Like, I'm not doing this for and I'm getting nothing for the YouTube. The YouTube is just, okay, yeah, it gives my business a bit of coverage or whatever, but it's more to do with the my spirit, like my will to, wanting to promote what I think is just a beautiful sport. And the coastline is so fantastic, and the camaraderie, like for example, I had a guy, Tony from the UK. He rang me up because he wanted to talk about the lures, and he was going to make a substantial purchase, and he did. And we talked hard lures for quite some time, and hopefully I've helped him to choose the right ones for his given situation. And he's a lovely guy. We had a great conversation, very interesting fella. And then next thing, I get a message from a guy in Prince Edward Island saying, "Oh, I see you're coming to Prince Edward Island. Tony's a good friend of mine. I'll come and meet you guys, and I'll show you around." And last night he sent me a map, and he's been showing me oyster beds and stuff that are his marks. And I was just blown away. I was just like, "Ah, this is the way fishing should be, right? This is the kind of camaraderie and the kind of decency that you want, right? Like you know, like instead of this kind of abrasive, aggressive, hyper competitive nonsense that certain Irish individuals go on with, like, just ignore those guys. Just ignore them, because they're just bullies. Like, it's just bullies. So I personally have no time for it, but it's like just such a nice thing to do, right? Like somebody's going on the holiday of a lifetime, and big shout out to Tony. Thank you so much. Like, and I told Tony if he comes to Ireland, I'll give him a full day for free. Like, like that's how the cookie crumbles, right? You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Like, um, so anyway, as I told you, I digress all the time, but it's niceness, right? It's like, when something nice happens, it's nice to talk about that and to put it out there. There should be more of it, you know. But that doesn't mean that we should publicize bass marks, because there are lots of people out there who are thoroughly dishonest and who will absolutely ravage our ground if they were given half a chance. I'm going to Prince Edward Island this year because they're about to open it up to the commercial fishers. And do you know what they want to fish them for? As bait for lobster pots. I mean, how narrow minded, how absolutely thick is that? Like, how stupid can you be? Like it just, boom. It blows my mind. They have the potential. Tourism is phenomenal. It's the same here. The potential here, like, and I can't get anybody to see it. It blows my mind. It's like, you just get fed up with it. You just go, you're not on the planet. You're not in the game here. Like, it's mad. But anyway, I digressed again. But so that's the head that's gonna get you out of bother when you're fishing in the weed, and the Xlayer will sit lovely on those, right? So it's not simply a case of fishing Xlayers on a batchy head and trotting them down the estuary. That's not all I do with them. I fish them regularly on the coast. I fish them regularly in the surf and on the surf beaches. I fish them at night quite a bit. I mean, I can think of one surf beach where on on a big tide, if it's particularly when it's flat calm, right? At low water, the bass just stack up in it. I mean, you walk onto it and there's sand eel everywhere, right? And they're like yay long, right? They're this size. So I get out one of these and I flick it out. Now, I either get out one of those or I get out one of these, right? Which is, as you know, Seawolf lures from my good friend Charles, right? And just flick it out, tighten into it, and just tipping it. like that. You don't even need to retrieve it, just tipping it, wind a little bit, tipping it. And it's just creating disturbance on the bottom, sending up little puffs of sand, you know. Um, I'm looking into some new jig heads that will dig into the sand and send up a bit of a puff. And we're going to talk about a new method as well. This mid strolling or whatever. I got the hooks in for that, but I can't do everything in one day. So I'm going to talk you through how to do that and the lures to use when you're doing that, right? But it won't be Xlayers. There'll be stuff from Raid, the super fish roller. Fantastic looking bait. Like, it actually has the same action as the feed shallow. You know, another bait that disappeared, and like, I have caught so many bass on it. Trevor, who passed away, was lethal with the feed shallow. I mean, I'll never forget the excitement that morning that Mr. Fish from Jersey brought us over to feed shallows, you know, and we all got one, and he was such a generous and such a nice fella. And Trevor was with us, and we headed out on the sandbar, and like, we just started nailing fish straight away, and the buzz was incredible, like, you know. And Trevor was one of those guys who just went for it. Like, I mean, he was gone. The sandbar used to run for a quarter of a mile. Now it's gone. It might be back this year. I don't know. Maybe Storm Owen blew it back in. I haven't been over yet to see it at low water. Hopefully it is, right? But what would happen on that sandbar was there used to be an inside channel, then there was the bar, and then there was the main channel. Now, on the dropping tide, if you could get out on the sandbar early enough, right, while the tide was still ripping out, right, so we used to be going, like, holding our boots up, right, and, you know, rods between our teeth and stuff, and, you know, all our lures in a box, and just da. And we remember doing it one morning with I can't remember the dog's name. Henry's lovely, beautiful sheepdog, you know, went swimming past me. I was like, fucking dog. You know, you were on your tippy toes trying to get across. Like, I mean, it's stuff I wouldn't do today. I wouldn't be able, you know, but like, we were young then. I was young, you know. I was like 30. I was young and I was strong and all of that. Now, not that I'm old and decrepit, I'm not, but I certainly wouldn't be able for any of that stuff anymore. But like, when you got onto that sandbar, you know, the fish were just running, flying out, group after group after group, and Trevor was in his element. He just took off, you know, with this feed shallow, and he could hit it, man. We'd all just gotten the red rods, and, you know, bass fishing was revolutionizing, you know, literally, you know, and in no small part due to Mr. Fish in Jersey. Like, he's been an absolute innovator, and you will not meet a nicer guy. Like, you just won't. He's such a lovely guy. He certainly helped me an awful lot to get started in this business, and you know, switched me on to so many lures, and, you know, did a couple of days in the boat with him and Bob Jamison, another absolute gent from Jersey. Those Jersey bass fight dirty, though. They fight dirty. I mean, you know, we got some bass here fight dirty, but not many. So, anyway, I keep telling stories and digressing, but you're going to have to put up with that, I'm afraid. So, I just want to show you some of the... It's a similar style of bait, right, to the Xlayer. It's the Mad Slug 150 from Madness. Now, what I like about this is, normally Madness, like, if you buy the Baruki, if I'm saying that right, shad or stuff, they're really good lures, but they're a one fish lure. They're hammered. But these are not. These are hardy, right? They, you know, right? And the bait is fine. And they come in a lovely range of colours. Now, a little trick is, if you get your packet of lures and they're they're not straight or whatever, they've been in the packet and they've got a bit bent, just drop them into kind of good warm water. Not too warm, but good and warm. And it'll soften the plastic and you can hang them and they'll straighten out for you, right? Not that it's going to make a huge amount of difference, to be honest with you, right? But you can see, now again, I have the new camera on the way, so things are about to improve, right? But like, look at the finish on those lures. Like, now that's the secret of washi. I mean, secret of washi, I just love it. I just love it as a color. But this is mint, right? Screen of washi. Then you got French Wakasaji, right? So that's from the guys at Ultimate, okay? And you're only getting those through Ultimate Fishing. Nobody else is going to have those colors. And the same goes with the 1-Up shad, by the way. After number 17, nobody else will have any color after number 17. Only people who are stocking Ultimate Fishing, because there are a lot of people who are sourcing them cheap in Japan, you know, and selling them cheap. And fair enough, it's grand, it's business, on you go. But they're not good colors. That's the problem. So if you want the good colors, you're going to have to pay the recommended retail. But I'll do my best to make it affordable. And I will do mixed bags as well, by the way. You know, if you get a hold of me, like, I'm not spending my days mixing bags. I'm not, but I will for people if they're stuck or whatever. And that's the same lure in IU, right? I mean, just beautiful. I mean, I saw Andy Davis, you know, he got into a bit of boat fishing last year, and he was using those extensively, and he caught some really cracking fish on the outer reefs, right? Now, I was due to buy a boat, but I'm going to have to delay it a little bit, I think. But we'll see. You never know. Depends how much money you guys spend. Spend some more money and I can buy a boat. I'm joking, by the way. So look, I hope that was useful. Like, I know I digressed off into stories about people and stuff, but you know, I just wanted to mention Trevor because he was a real character, and yeah, he'll be sorely missed. He'll be sorely missed in the fishing world in Jersey, that's for sure. But the Xlayer has just so many uses, right? It is not just, you know, trotting it down the estuary on a batchy head. Like, for example, that's the X and Wakasaji, right? Now, I've done really, really well on Wakasaji. I don't really think there's a whole lot of difference between Wakasaji and IU. To be honest, I see them both as kind of really natural sand eel imitations. Now, that's a fantastic way to fish the X if you're sight fishing bass in an estuary, or if you're upriver and you're fishing, you know, you're fishing the margins, or you want to fish over the top of a weed bed, right? Just phenomenal, right? If you want to get it to fall a bit slower, you just turn it around, okay? Get over, push it through that side. Didn't do a very good job there, but it doesn't matter. And it has a different action on the drop, right? Really, really, really versatile bait, right? Don't know why they went out of fashion, right? I don't know why people fish paddle tails all the time. I find it fine sometimes, but a bit boring, to be honest. Like, and there's not much to it, and it's like they get advertised as, oh, this color and that color and and yeah, but that's fine. But I mean, doesn't make a phenomenal amount of difference, like what color it is. Like you know, like let me show you. I got these in yesterday. Drift eels, right? And I guarantee you, those are going to absolutely murder bass. And there's nothing particularly fancy about them. Like, they're 20 grams. They're going to be brilliant for the kayak guys. Going to be brilliant for the shore guys. Right? But, like, they're just a nice kind of greeny, you know, Lovely. The other color I got is somewhere here. White with just a spot of chartreuse on the head, right? Absolutely nail bass. So I got the 20 grams. I just got them yesterday to have a look at them. I wanted to see them. So we got a few things that I just wanted to check out. And cheers to Florian at Irish Wholesale Fishing Supplies. He does an excellent job, right? So I got these, and I got them because I want to check out a new method of fishing soft plastics, but we're going to have a whole section on that at a later stage. And the fast snaps are in stock and will stay in stock from now on. Okay, so those are going to be available at a very reasonable price. So I think that's it for the morning, guys. Like, I'm talking for 30 minutes now. I just wanted to just highlight, you know, the extra uses of the Xlayer. You know, that and the mad slug is the same. It can be fished in all the same ways. You know, it can be fished offset. It can be fished on a jig head. You know, it can be fished in the estuary. It can be fished on the coast. It can be fished from the boat and the kayak. It can be fished vertically. You know, there are a myriad of ways. You could drop shot them. You know, I know Dutch guys who drop shot lures all the time, right? Because they've got to get the bass are a long way out, right? So the bigger rods, lead weight, and the bait is hooked in a drop shot, and they literally just bang it down. The advantage to that, of course, is that the bait doesn't pick up any weed, or picks up less weed, right? They're catching lots of bass that way. So, you know, there are lots of ways to innovate and use lures in different ways, and you know, think about your fishing. The other way that I've had great success with the Xlayer is to fish it on a net head, or not a net head, but geez, it won't come. That's incredible. That's long COVID for you. You know what I'm talking about, the ball heads with the clip on them, right? That style of whatever they're called. I'm sorry, it's gone. So I'll get it for you the next day. But you have your little ball and ball of lead and the clip, and you clip it on an offset hook, and it gives you a much greater casting distance with the Xlayer. And just fish it that way, and I'm fishing it sink and draw, lifting it up and letting it swim back down again and stuff, particularly in a bit of current and that, right? So lots of ways to fish that bait, not just the simple trotting it down the estuary. Yeah, got loads of tackle on the way, lots of new lures, lots of colors coming in the Mad Eel 90. I'm going to have lots more colors in the drift as well. I'm just looking for we're going to have more colors in the 5-inch spindle worms as well, right? We're going to have greater variety, and in the 4-inch spindle worms. Oh, here it is, right? So if you look at that, right, so you get 6 of those in a packet, right, for 16 odd euro. and you get a pack of, I think, 3 or 4 heads for €7. So for the guts of €23, you've got 6 baits, right? Like, compare that to the price of the Sandy Andy, and that's much better value. Like, way better value. With Sandy Andy, you get a single lure, and they're gone. Then that's it. Bye bye. Day. But these, and they're hardy. They're much hardier than the Western lure, right? I just prefer them, to be honest with you. They catch more fish. Now, in fairness, the Sandy Andy's a good lure. I'm not saying it's not, right? It is a good lure, and it catches a lot of bass. Look, there's no doubt about that, right? But I'm getting this in the same colors. I'm going to get it in pink. I'm going to have it obviously in these natural colors and stuff. It is particularly nice on those. Those are the Evo heads. They are particularly natural. I mean, look at that. Like, I mean, you can't get much more like an early season small sand eel than that, right? And I love the tail. I love the fact that it's not really, that it's subtle. That the action is subtle. Because if you watch the bait is not scooting here, there, and everywhere. It's very subtle. It's just gliding out. The only time the bait scatters is when a fish shows up, right? And that's why these work so well as well, because they're subtle. They're not making a huge fuss, right? So yeah, so that's it for today, guys. Thanks a million for tuning into the channel, and keep stay tuned for more tackle talk and reviews and products coming into the shop and all those other things. And thanks everybody for your support and supporting the shop. It means the world. Okay, tight lines, everybody. Have a good day.